Hello, I hope you're doing well. So in this video, I'd like to talk about effective ways of improving your marathon time. And although I'll be using my own personal experiences for this, I think the principles that I'll mention can be applied no matter where you are in, your marathon journey, whether you're trying to get under 5 hours or 4 hours or 3 hours. The principles that I'll mention can be used for any. So the two examples I'm going to be using is going to be New York from 2019 and then Yokohama from 2025. And in the first part of this video, I'm going to mention three differences I made during training. And then in the second part of the video, I'm going to mention three changes I made on race day itself that I think all contributed to the improvements in the time. So the first difference during the training block for these two marathons was in weekly volume. So during the training for the New York Marathon, my weekly average was around 48 miles. During Yokohama, it was around 60 miles, so about a 12-mile improvement or a 12-mile increase in that weekly volume. So it wasn't a massive increase, but just 10, 12 miles more each week on average, I found made a real big difference. So again, I'm just using my numbers for this one, but whatever your weekly mileage is, wherever you're at, if you can improve it by 5, 10, 12 miles a week, I found that to be a real useful during training. So the highest weekly mileage I ever did for New York was 60 miles, which I only ever did once. That was the absolute peak for me. And the highest weekly mileage I did for Yokohama was 90 miles. Again, that was the peak, and I only ever did that once. But a general increase in the volume I found to be really useful. Again, do it build up sensibly. And so the second difference I made during the training for these two marathons was in the balance of the training. So in 2019, I started the long runs too late and I didn't do enough of them. So back then for 2019, I went over 15 miles on 6 occasions, whereas in Yokohama, I went over 15 miles on 13 occasions. So I started the long runs earlier in the training block in the 3 months before, and I did more of them. Also, I think my emphasis was probably also on more speed work in 2019, whereas in 2025 I was really appreciating those long, steady runs. So the third difference I made was in races. So in 2019, I didn't do any races at all in the build up to New York. In the 3 months beforehand, I didn't race at all. Whereas in 2025, I did 3 races. I did 1 half marathon and 2 10Ks in the 3 months before Yokohama. So I'm not saying that you should do 3 races. I think maybe 3 races was perhaps 1 race too many for me. But I think having that experience of race day, having all that goes with it, maybe do a 10K a month before or 3 weeks before, or whatever's going to work for you. But I think definitely doing those races really did help. It gets you in tune with racing. It gets you used to those feelings on race day. So I think races, for my next marathon I'll probably try and do 2 races. I think 3 races was perhaps, like I say, 1 too many. But experiencing that race day and getting ready and how it will feel, putting your body through that race, those race conditions, I think really for me was really beneficial. So now I'd like to mention 3 things that I did on race day, which I think really contributed to the difference in time. And the first difference I made was hydration. So it might be an obvious one, but for me it's an essential one. Back in 2019, I really didn't have much of a plan around hydration. It was just some sort of vague idea of I'll take on board some water when I need to, and it just went badly wrong. The last 6 miles of that race for me is sort of a dehydrated blur. I got it wrong. Whereas in 2025, I had a strategy of of making sure I stayed hydrated. So for me, that involved carrying a soft flask around. I know that might not be a solution for everybody, but have some kind of hydration plan in place, and practice that hydration. If the event's going to have paper cups, practice taking, drinking water from those cups. If it's going to be bottles, practice that. But hydration is a massive part of it. I got it really wrong in 2019, so I learned the hard way. And so for 2025, I had a definite plan in place. So yeah, hydration, have a plan, practice it. The second difference on race day was in choice of shoes. So for 2019, I ran in the original Fuel Cell Rebels, which, a really good shoe, and I really enjoyed using these. But there's no plate to this. They're not really a super shoe as such. Whereas in 2025, I went with the Wave Rebellion Pro 2, which does have that carbon plate in. So I do think it made a difference. I think having that plate in there, that kind of propulsion, I think really helped. But again, they are all these super shoes are really expensive. So weigh up what's going to work for you. And I know this particular shoe isn't going to be one that's going to work for everybody because of the design of it. But I think having done a marathon in, without the carbon plate, and then having done one in a carbon plate, I think there is a difference. It does make a difference. It might only be a couple of percent, but 2-3% across 26 miles, I think does help you. So the third and final difference on race day I'd like to mention is around gels. So for 2019, again, didn't really have a clear gel strategy, a clear fueling strategy. So it became too late and not enough, and I really felt that towards the end of the race. I mean, I definitely hit the wall. I think a combination of the hydration and the gels was down to that. Whereas in 2025, I had a clear, plan of what I wanted to do with the gels. So it was taken on board earlier and also more frequently. So for me, the plan was a gel every 5 miles, which I didn't do in 2019. So yeah, I think those 6 things really did all combine to make a massive difference and a massive improvement to my marathon time. So again, I think, I've just used my own sort of numbers and weekly mileage and stuff, but I think, applying these principles, like I say, wherever you're at with your marathon, I think really, hopefully, be really beneficial and would really help. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've got any comments or suggestions or things that have helped you, please put them in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching. All the best.